Hi listeners, host Grace Anna here. Today we are sharing a special episode from our friends at Ladies Who Lore, a podcast that deep dives into urban legends while diving into bottles of wine. In each episode, hosts Jessie Vane, Lindsay Whisler, and Sammy Winchester share thrilling urban legends, ghost stories, and folklore with tips on wines to pair. Today, we are sharing their episode on Lilith, an important female figure from Jewish lore, traditionally known as Adam's first wife before Eve. Unlike Eve, Lilith refused to play a subordinate role and demanded that she and Adam be treated equally. Lilith eventually departed from Eden and went to the Red Sea. While many today celebrate Lilith as a feminist icon, she was for many centuries depicted as a nefarious and in some cases demonic character. The history of her lore is fascinating, especially the many meanings Lilith has taken on for different cultures throughout time. Pre-Raphaelite painter Dante Gabriel Rossetti is one of many artists who have captured the figure of Lilith on canvas. In his famous depiction, titled Lady Lilith, we find a beautiful and proud Lilith seductively brushing her hair. She seems to be caught in a moment of private reflection, her eyebrows slightly burrowed, her eyes distanced, and her lips pursed in contemplation. Here she is a woman unafraid to stand in her own power, independent, alluring, and confident. In Rossetti's version, Lilith is modeled by Fanny Cornforth, a prominent artist model for the Pre-Raphaelite group, and one of Rossetti's mistresses. She modeled for a number of different works by Rossetti, and we plan to have a full episode on Fanny Cornforth in a future season of ArtMuse. Until then, we hope you enjoy this special collaboration with Ladies Who Lore. You can find Ladies Who Lore on all streaming platforms as well as Instagram and TikTok by searching for Ladies Who Lore.
Welcome to Ladies Who Lore, the only podcast that dives deep into urban legends and bottles of wine. We're your hosts, Lindsay, Jessie,
and Sammy.
Now fill up your glasses, gather around the fire, and let's lore. I had read about her in some of the Cassandra Clare books. I also know the Lilith sign exists in astrology, which we'll talk about for a second, but there's a specific, it's not a planet, but it goes along with your planets in astrology, which is really interesting. But I've just heard the name so much. I've heard her as Mother of Demons. I recently saw a TikTok that Lilith was there in a lot of scholars' opinions, was there during the Adam and Eve story. And that was the thing that sparked my obsession, because according to some scholars, Lilith is actually Adam's first wife. But I will get to that when it comes. I think that's where a lot of people have heard about her, because now there's this feminist subversion of the Garden of Eden story.
Oh, I cannot wait to hear this.
So Lilith, who is she? What's her deal? So in a vacuum, Lilith is a demoness from Judeo-Christian, but even older than that, Mesopotamian culture, who on her surface, when you see her depicted, she is a woman with wild hair, she's naked, she has wings, which is where the winged dragon bit comes in. A lot of times she's also depicted as related to owls. And in her original form, she was supposed to be super gross and terrifying. And it's funny because her depictions of her have gotten sexier over time.
That's right.
If you Google Lilith, you're gonna see a very sexy lady with some wings.
Next time, here's Halloween
costume. exactly. As the succubus demon, or the idea of, if you've heard of a succubus, as the corrupter of Eve. But she's worn her hats for literally thousands of years. And she's been doing her thing in different forms for a long time. So I want to go back into the early history because I really think it is so fascinating how lore changes and grows as a reflection of where we are in history.
Definitely. And for those who don't know what a succubus is, it's a woman who like sleeps with a man and like kills
seduces
him.
and kills. Yeah.
Like a demon.
Yeah.
Who like
It's honestly like it's not super clear. It could just be that it's a really horny demon lady who wants to have demon babies with this man.
Right.
Sometimes she kills him. It's just the idea of like an evil, sexy lady who's gonna get you at your most vulnerable.
Right.
It just screams people being afraid of sexy, liberated women.
Definitely. Which has strongholds in a lot of religions, not just Christianity.
Yes.
True.
Though Christianity for sure. It's funny, last episode I remember you being like, we're not tackling the Bible. And I was like, well, I'm going to try. But she's not in the Bible so much. This isn't, obviously, like, I would say this is more about cultural traditions than true religious tradition. She exists in a lot of these writings, but she's not mentioned in a lot of these religions quite actively. It's more about a cultural, historical tradition. So Lilith was born in Mesopotamia thousands of years ago, 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. Mesopotamia, if you're not aware, if you didn't do your 6th grade intro, is sort of like the Fertile Crescent area of the Middle East. I think the earliest like organized human society by some standpoints. So Lilith is old. She's been around. She's seen it all. And in that time, in Mesopotamia, there were all sorts of religions. There were polytheistic religions. There were monotheistic religions. You know what? Actually, I don't remember when Judaism came to be. But anyway, it was a melting pot of religions. And there were lots of exchange between those religions to create the stories and the myths that we know. So early scholars believe that she was born out of 2 very specific demons in Mesopotamia. Oh, and I also have to credit for this part. There's a historian named Sarah Clegg who's fantastic, who wrote a book called Women's Lore, which I'm gonna buy because I read a little bit of it for this, and it's fantastic. She goes through like these lore traditions that focus on women, but like in a way that is historically fascinating. So anyway, the first of these 2 demons were called Litu, which were young girls in Mesopotamia who died before marriage and allegedly would come back and cause wet dreams in men because they wanted to have sex.
Oh my god.
So
why do we have to blame women for men having wet dreams? Why? It all goes back to how can we blame men?
Not women, children.
Children. You're right. Little children.
That's awful.
Jesus.
Yeah. And allegedly there was also a male version of this really early on. There's some like evidence that there were young boys that would also tempt people who never got to have sex. But that myth didn't really go anywhere, surprisingly.
Shocker. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is Lilith, like, a legitimate, real person? Like how Jesus could have been a real person? He was a real person, but then the lore got ahead of him?
No. Or Lilith, it seems, has always been a demoness in the story.
Cool.
Some might argue, hard to say with Adam and Eve. But we know allegedly that Jesus was a guy.
Yeah.
Some of the creation stories, though, there are demons, there are all sorts of mythological creatures that show up in the Bible and the Torah, which I think is very interesting. So I would say Lilith is more like angel demon than real person.
And the one you were just talking about was allegedly her parent? Is that what you said?
This is the first origins of Lilith came from, they think, a mishmash of 2 demon spirits.
That's what it was, okay.
That were in Mesopotamia.
Okay.
Basically, I think she's a demoness. She's not a real person. And she came out of 2 demons. And the second demon that she was born from, or not really born from, but they think mishmash to create her, was a popular demoness called Lamashtu, who was very seductive and liked to pull children out of people's wombs before they were born, and liked to kill children. And part of the reason they think she did that is because she never had children of her own. And those were the two demon spirits that they think were kind of mishmashed together in mythology to create Lilith, who ended up being sort of a gender-changing, sexy, creepy lady who really hated children and mothers and made childbirth and having kids a bad time, but also seduced men a lot.
Sounds great.
She can have it all.
So, and it's funny. She's like a funny thing about Lilith is like that. It's always like good to have like reasons that you accidentally, slept with someone else. And I think Lilith was a bit of a scapegoat for that as well. Because Lilith could have demon children and then they'd be just on Earth. And you're like, oh my gosh, Lilith just delivered this child to me that she, was impregnated in dreams or whatever. And
so you could blame children behaving poorly on you must have slept with Lilith.
Yeah, or just having bastard children in general.
Right.
You could be
Lilith's
like, it's like Lilith. Yeah.
Interesting.
She also, what's cool and fun is that these lores pop up multiple places, right? So she had a cousin in Greece, they think, named Lamia, who's actually was pretty famous for a while, who is a sea demon, and she was a cousin, and they think Lamia is sort of related to her as well.
Fun.
So Lilith flew and she swam. She had all modes of transportation.
We'll continue our story after a brief word from our advertisers. Welcome back, listeners. Now let's dive back in.
So then we get to Jewish folklore, which is where she's most famous and where the tradition really starts with Lilith herself. And she appears in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Whoa.
Which legitimize her. Yeah, because the Dead Sea Scrolls are a pretty big deal. They're a set of sort of ancient Jewish scrolls of people who lived in the 8th century BC.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool.
Again, Lilith is old.
This bitch is old.
Yeah. She old as hell.
Yeah, she is old as hell, and maybe also comes from hell.
Yeah.
And she's still that winged demon who harms children, but it isn't until maybe medieval Jewish culture that we start hearing that Lilith actually might have been there in the Bible. And that she actually was kind of there in the Garden of Eden. And these stories abounded. These were real old stories. And the story goes that God created Adam and Lilith at the same time. So if you, know the Bible, if you know Genesis, this is actually, not a crazy theory, given that it says that he molds man and woman out of clay. Or out of dirt. But then later you hear that Eve is actually made out of Adam's ribs. So in these earlier stories, he molded Adam and Lilith to be equals, to be together, to live in this Garden of Eden. But allegedly, Adam wanted... This is crazy.
Oh, God.
I'm so sorry. No, this is just it's so interesting how early peoples came up with this stuff. And it's so crazy what makes it into early Bibles and what doesn't. But allegedly, Adam said that he wanted to be on top during sex. And Lilith was no, we're supposed to be equal. And in this story, she flies out of the garden like the little winged demoness she is. So again... And she's chased by sea angels who make her promise that she'll not harm children.
So, so hold on. Just let me get the story straight. So they're in the throes of passion. And Adam's on top, and she's like, no, we have to be equal, so let me go
Adam's
on
like,
top.
I want to be on top. They don't usually have him on top.
Oh.
According to this story, Adam does not, he's not on top.
So then she's like, fuck this, and then flies away.
Yeah, she's chased to the sea. Angels basically make her promise not to kill children if they do this counter curse. Which is funny because, like, there is actually allegedly a counter curse from ancient Mesopotamia. But so just think Lilith, first wife. Adam wants to do stuff that she's not comfy with, so she flies away, and she's like, I'm out. I'm going to the sea. Then God is like, oh, you know what? This is better. I'll do the girly version, the girly pop Lilith version. Then Adam is like, but God, I'm lonely. So God, according to the story, makes Eve from Adam's rib so that they will not be equals. So that woman now is made out of men.
So because Adam was an insecure man, women have to suffer forever.
Yes.
You know, according to these old stories, yes.
Love it.
Wow.
And it gets worse, right?
Of course
it gets better because Eve and Adam are in the garden, right? And I assume most people know the story of Adam and Eve. Forgive me if that is not true. But, like, we know the basics, right? Yeah. Like, Adam and Eve live in the garden. Eve eats the apple, and then they're banished forever.
Right.
Because Eve is tempted by knowledge and the snake, who is like, take a bite of the apple.
Right.
And so, anyway, that's the original story. So, what's funny is, in this story, Lilith comes back in two different ways. Some stories have her coming back to have sex with Adam in the night, steal his seed, and create more little demons.
Hilarious.
So, oops, Adam cheated. And in other versions of the story, Lilith actually feeds Eve the apple of knowledge. She's the snake in the Garden of Eden, Satan, that is like, take this knowledge.
But
which I think is really interesting.
She's just like, you need to be a free woman.
Yeah, the knowledge being that he will never view her as his equal.
Wow. Wow.
That is so interesting.
Another interesting bolstering fact to this being like something that people really talked about and believed was that in the Sistine Chapel, painted by Michelangelo, like really famous piece of artwork on a ceiling mural, he depicts Lilith as the demon in the garden handing Eve the apple. So that's cool.
Huh.
So Lilith is always sort of there. And she's even a little bit in the Bible. Like, if you go into the Bible's been translated into so many different languages in so many different ways. In some versions, like the Hebrew Bible, they use something called Lilith. In some versions, Lilith, is described as the wild creature of the night. In some versions, in the Greek version, she's described as Lamia, if you recall her Greek cousin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. And then in some versions, it's a winged screech owl, which is why we have the owl symbolism. So she's everywhere, but nowhere.
That's kind of cool.
Which is so cool to me.
I'm falling so deeply in love with Lilith.
No, honestly.
She seems really
Lilith,
fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's you know, like, been there with the traditions of the Bible and of Jewish folklore and of the earliest forms of folklore, and she's just been around, like, all of it. And I think that's really cool. She's just sort of orbited it, and for different reasons.
And she was like, Adam did not want us to be equal, so I'm going to make it my mission to, like, give every woman the knowledge that this is how man thinks of us.
Yeah.
Like, I just love that she has a vendetta and she's acting on it throughout the years, and I just love her. Okay.
She's an icon.
I know. She's pretty cool. Lilith's sitting behind me with the thumbs up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I wanted to get to, by the way, is like the idea that, like, whether or not, you know, Lilith is everywhere, she means so many different things. And I think she often encapsulates, I know it's going to be so gendered, I'm sorry to the men who listen and don't want to hear it, but she encapsulates how we think about women. Because the first way that Lilith shows up is, like, you know, it's on the male side, it's this wet dream thing. But for women, sorry.
I forgot about that.
And the way you said it was just so, like, nonchalant. This is wet dream thing.
But for women, they're, like, praying to have Lilith not touch them with childbirth, with their children. Because childbirth is so serious.
Yeah.
And, of course, they'd come up with a demoness that, like, you know, they were really worried about this. And they didn't want their children dying. And she's so real and famous for that reason for thousands of years. People are worried that she's gonna hurt them. So to me that's really cool because like she showed up and she was kind of created by women in that way. And it was only later that she became really like sexy and succubusy.
Right.
That was like another evolution where she started getting blamed for these relationships and these bastard children, or like. In medieval Christianity, their own seductress was the Greek relative, Lamia, who had to do with the sea. And this is really interesting here because she blends with the idea of sirens in Greece, and you get mermaids.
Mermaids, you say?
So Lilith starts turning into mermaids, beautiful, sexy mermaids who are like killing people and luring them to their death.
The more
She's
you
everywhere.
talk about her, I'm like, more in it.
No,
Like,
I'm a big fan of
I
Lilith.
really like her.
She has a goal,
She's just-
and I appreciate a woman with a goal.
Like, owls, mermaid, like, it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
And I love it. She can be whatever
And
she
it's-
wants to be.
Oh, inspiring.
She really is. I think she's the ultimate first lady to freak people out with her liberation, right?
Yeah. I mean,
And
I don't
so-
like the dead kid part.
No, the kid
I
part
wish
is
that
Oh,
she
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
do
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't think she should do that.
But
I
in
don't
my
think she should
brain,
do
I've
that. But on the
rationalized
sexy
it.
dead side.
Yeah, I've rationalized it as like a scapegoat, that part isn't actually hers,
Yeah.
and that people are blaming women's suffering on her.
100%.
Totally.
Okay, great.
I see where you're coming from.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's cool is like she's got relatives that are mermaids. She's got relatives that are Lamia. She's like some point to Medusa also having this serpentine quality that like maybe Medusa was an offshoot of Lamia, like things like that. Because Medusa also lived by the sea and, you know, had her beef with Poseidon and stuff.
We'll continue our story after a brief word from our advertisers. Welcome back, listeners. Now let's dive back in.
But I think what's cool is, like, it wasn't until the 1970s, second wave feminism, that anyone really was like, is Lilith cool? For the longest time, Lilith was synonymous with, like, the darkest, creepiest, scariest woman. And in the 1970s, a lot of Jewish female scholars who were going through second wave feminism started writing essays and books on Lilith and how she, you know, is kind of like an interesting feminist icon because, you know, women were leaving the home and going into the workforce to the chagrin of some people, and Lilith did the similar thing in quote unquote the Garden of Eden, right? Like she was like, there's got to be something more, I'm leaving. And, you know, Octavia Butler, who's like a really famous sci-fi author, starts writing about her. She shows up, she gets like literally a planet, a stellium thing, I don't know the right words, named after an astrology, the Lilith node or whatever. There's like asteroid Lilith, black moon Lilith, dark moon Lilith. And these are all things that symbolize when the moon is furthest away from Earth in your chart. And the things that are most dark and deep and about you. Like your undercurrent.
So cool.
I like that they all have to do with the moon, too, because
Yeah.
the moon is like a feminine energy symbol.
Yeah.
And they have to do with, like, the darkest that we see the moon is Lilith. Oh, that's so cool.
So
Yeah.
cool.
Did that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it totally does. It's very poetic.
It is.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why she got that name.
Right.
Like why someone took Lilith and put it onto
Right.
us, but I just thought it was so cool that they did.
Yeah.
And then also there was, you know, like in the 90s, which I thought was cool, there's this thing called Lilith Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, all these indie female musicians like came together. I think can't remember who the artists were. I'm pretty sure like the Indigo Girls were there. Sarah McLachlan or Alanis Morissette. I used to get them confused when I was little. Like I really can't fully remember.
That is so crazy.
You know what? I have it sitting in my notes. I just need to pull up a separate part. Sarah McLachlan started it to defy like the male-dominated music industry.
I love that.
And she felt like women couldn't write what they wanted or perform what they wanted.
Amazing.
And so it had like all sorts of... It was like Sheryl Crow, Jewel. I'll just read off the list.
Oh.
Sheryl Crow, Jewel, Indigo Girls, Fiona Apple, Tracy Chapman, Natalie Merchant. Like, come on.
Phenomenal.
And it raised
great lineup.
over $10 million for charity in its first 3 years.
Wow.
So let's bring this back.
So I
feel like Sabrina Carpenter, Olivia Rodrigo,
No,
Taylor Swift, Renee Rapp.
Yeah, let's bring this back.
Where is it?
Where is it?
You know, there's so much like Swiftie speculation that Taylor Swift is eventually going to start her own music festival, and I would be down. I'll go. I will go. That sounds incredible.
I would love to go too.
In a really sad way, it also sounds like a place that people might target.
Yeah, it would definitely get some bomb threats for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wish men would
but
stop.
I'd still go.
True.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, but that's, you know, that's basically Lilith for you. I think in some ways she is the first independent woman in myth. In some ways she is created by women for their concerns and then eventually got co-opted by male sexuality. In some ways she's evil and vicious and she wants everyone to be childless just like her. I just think there are a lot of relevant parts of her story, especially right now.
Yeah.
You know, she's the story of our attitudes towards women over time, and I think whatever you believe, Lilith is free.
Yeah.
And that is her power.
Great lore, Lindsay. I do think it's really interesting that I'm pretty confident. It's been a while since I've watched Supernatural, but in Supernatural, I'm pretty sure that Lilith was like a kid. Not a kid, but
oh yeah, she was a kid.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're going with the wet dreams angle.
Like,
oh my god.
I'm pretty sure it was like a younger girl that played Lilith.
It definitely was.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which I think is
interesting.
really interesting.
That's interesting for a lot of reasons, too. Especially because, like, her modern-day connotation is she is sexy.
Like, maybe they were trying to go for the old version.
But it's like, so interesting.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Interesting. This whole story...
makes me want to watch it.
Yeah. This whole story is making me think of, and maybe this is not relevant whatsoever, but I took medieval sexuality in college, which was a fantastic course. I loved it a lot. And one of my favorite stories from that class is there was a guy who was having sex with a woman, and the woman was a witch. And after they had sex, she cut off his penis.
Oh.
And he was like, oh no, like I would like my penis back. Because it was like men who slept with women like outside of marriage or something like that. Like there was a reason he was bad. And she was like, you can have your penis back if you follow me to my penis tree. And she literally had a nest full of peni, full of men she had slept with. And like one was from a priest, one was just like a huge dick, and one was his dick, and he wanted the biggest one. And so he took the biggest one. And I forget, like, the moral of the story. But I think it was, like, there are no good men was sort of the moral of, like, if a priest had his dick there.
Yeah.
It was just... I think about that from time to time. And I feel like maybe now that witch was maybe Lilith, perhaps.
I want to know the rest of this.
She's always around.
She was always around. And I feel like she would cut off some ding-dongs. I regret saying that. I regretted it.
That's a wild story. I can't believe that didn't translate to modern lore. What happened?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I would love to see the penis tree. Well, there is a tree that looks like, if you Google it, I'm actually going to Google it right now.
Wait, really?
Yes, there's a penis tree. Tree.
Oh. I guess we'll have to put that on the episode Instagram.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do think we will have to put that on there. It just looks like a bunch of penises.
It does, like...
Maybe that is the one from the story.
It's like a waterfall of penises.
Aw, that's Yeah.
Yeah. That's...
I feel like I'm talking too much about penises right now.
Yeah, you're right.
I'll confess, without giving too much outside current events going on, but I was really looking for someone lore-wise that would make me feel connected to women of old.
Yes. I love that.
And I think this is a really incredible story of that, because God, can you imagine, well, I just took the Lord's name in vain, so this is not going to be a very compelling Christian argument anymore, but can you imagine if that was the creation myth? Seriously. Can you imagine if the original
man and woman are equal?
They were equal, and then she left.
Yeah.
And we had to make a new woman. And then that woman also got corrupted because you can't hide that knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, it makes so much more sense in general because, like, I mean, every animal species pretty much, like, the woman is in charge of the species.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it just makes a lot of sense. And for some reason, man has corrupted it so that woman feels less than, even though we are equally as intelligent. We are more emotionally empathetic. It's just like, it's so unbelievably fucked up that we live in a world where we're seen as less than, or we're seen as threats. And like the reason that there are laws and there are crazy things that are happening in this world right now where we are made to be oppressed because there's a fear of us is insane. So I wish people would take that story as truth, you know, because we are equal.
Right.
We should be.
Yeah, I would much prefer a creation story where woman and man were crafted the same and not woman was coming from man's rib.
Right.
No.
That's for sure. That doesn't seem fair. And, you know, again, there's evidence to say that, like, some people thought that too.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Those people have just been drowned out, unfortunately.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
really
good.
good lore, Lindsay. Really good lore.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I think that we can
enjoyed it.
channel Lilith moving forward.
In some ways.
In some ways, not in the child way. I know, I keep forgetting the bad part.
I also forget the bad part.
Selective hearing on my end.
No, I also was forgetting.
But you know what? Woman is both good and bad.
You know what?
So true.
It's true. She contains multitudes. That is for sure.
Yeah.
She is a lot of things.
Wow.
I guess I mean just don't settle. Let's not settle.
Yeah.
And use our power to enlighten other women
100%.
to view their worth. I think is a good thing to take from this for sure.
Yeah.
Even though you'll be painted on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel as a demon.
By a man. A man painted that.
We just lose the rest of our man audience.
I don't know that we had a
guys.
big man audience to start with.
I don't think we have.
You know, I hope we
audience.
gain some feminist men.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
You know, it doesn't just come from us. It comes from our male counterparts. So thank you to all the men listening. We appreciate your allyship. And we hope you continue it with us.
And we love you.
We love you.
And we won't haunt you in your dreams.
True.
Unless you do something that pisses us off. Or we get so many emails being like, I had so many wet dreams recently after listening.
And it's your fault.
No.
my God.
Good job, Lindsay.
Good wine, good times.
Good friends.
Thanks, ladies.
I'm very excited for next week when we get to hear... Oh my gosh, next week is Christmas. I'm so excited to hear Sammy's lore.
I'm excited.
I'm saying it right now, it's Krampus.
I'm so sorry for messing up Christian Christmas a week before, but you know, anyway, it's fine. It's fine.
It might be holiday
for Sammy's.
themed. It might not.
Okay.
And either way, it's going to be great.
Do you know what the best holiday present to give is? The knowledge of Ladies Who Lore. So tell your friends about us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, tell your friends, and write in to ladieswholorepod@gmail.com for your stories.